Official introduction, José Vadi is an award-winning essayist, poet, playwright, and film producer. He is the author of Interstate, Essays from California, and Chipped, Writing from a Skateboarder's Lens. His work has been featured by the Paris Review, The Atlantic, the PBS NewsHour, KQED, Free Skate Magazine, Quarter Snacks, Alta Journal, and the Yale Review. Please give it up for José Vadi.
All right, so I've always wanted to kind of do this, but I've never been able to do this, so hopefully it'll work out. But yeah, once again, my name is José, and a lot of my work, I'm a poet, but I also write nonfiction. Everything you'll be hearing tonight is nonfiction in the form of essays. A lot of this stuff that I'm presenting tonight I haven't shown to much people. A lot of this is the ephemera that I used and created to write these two books. So I'll be reading two excerpts from two essays from Interstate and two essays from Chipped, which is all about skateboarding. But I feel, yeah, I mean, that's it really. Thanks very much. In the digitized high footage, my abuelo's home remains. The massive fruit tree and retaining wall dividing the backyard from the shared neighborhood rear alley. An old California farm town with many ditches in the middle of the alley, dead ending at the wash, carrying water down from the San Gabriel Valley mountains of San Dimas, Mount Baldy, Mount San Antonio, and beyond. Down and through the suburbs and river of the same SGV namesake, somewhere near the Montes collision with the Irwindale mineral mines and drag races, that infamous 10 to 605 interchange. Clipped to his white undershirt is the lavalier mic I just purchased at the Radio Shack up the street that used to house a remodeled Kmart and no longer houses kids skating its loading docks before stealing rolls of film. The lavalier is plugged into the wrong part of the high-8 camera, which had been boxed and unused for years on my dad's dresser. Thankfully, the camera's built-in microphone catches Abuelo's words clearly after a brief test shot of him curiously introducing himself to the camera. Antonio Gomez. The expression on his face like he was hearing his name aloud for the first time. My abuelo exists between my first and last names, José, which I share with my father, and Vadi, the last name of our Afro-Boricua ancestors who took the name of their Corsican sugar plantation landowner Vadi, erasing their indigenous name Valle, according to my dad, José Miguel, whose first name I bear before Antonio, my mother's father. José Antonio Gomez Vadi, two patriarchs resting like gargoyles on either side of my tongue, multiple namesakes for a worldview inherited to honor and evolve. I begin my interview. My mom sits behind me playing translator, my original Spanish lost by kindergarten. Still, Abuelo and I have communicated through the fragmented fluency we've smoothed into proficiency. My questions are about him and his life, his origin story, those stories we've heard growing up about hopping trains as an Okie and heading west from Nebraska to California, of running away from immigration, of slowly getting the entire Gomez tribe into the States in piecemeal stages, of working before settling in the towns a few miles west of where my sister and I were raised. The Gomez route starts here with a man who wouldn't let me in the house without a clean shave and short hair, the same abuelo who told a cousin not to come inside wearing an early 90s hoop earring slightly dangling from his ear because he looked like a girl. Just a handful of the conservative qualities reminding my generation that the generation before us did not experience such a benevolent man, while I sit behind the camera, exploiting the benefit of doubt incarnate that is being a grandchild, finding the answers few in our family had documented. He sits poised in a sullied but functional white plastic chair. A long, fold-down pool chair adorned with pillows and old shirts rests on the other side of the lemon tree, his outside napping area for the last 30 years. He was already in his late 80s at the time of filming, and I was sober enough in my somewhat reckless 20s to know that this access, like his memory, would end sooner than later. I didn't know he had already purchased his own burial plot right next to the one where the grandmother I barely knew had been resting since just before I turned 2. Both plots just off the main road in Rose Hills, purchased for $600 American. Unfathomable now, the cost of California's soil. I didn't know sitting there, kneeling next to the makeshift tripod, that nearly 4 years later I'd be sitting in the same room of his house, watching him transition into an afterlife I don't hope to see anytime soon. Towards the end of our interview, I asked Abuelo if Mexico circa 2007 will become like Colombia, with the cartels and government in a dance with US aid, and he replies, "Ya es." We both laughed slightly at this progressive comment, as you'll get from this guy, who still disapproves of my Rage Against the Machine t-shirts that I hid under hoodies on sunny days when stopping by. I don't know why it took me years to digitize this tape, to see him and hear his voice again. It's still hard to drive by his former home, which was also our home. I am lucky this tape outlived my laziness, these memories I am still trying to hold while watching my abuelo, mi chaparro, appear on a screen before me, stooping slightly with his cane at this age, showing my uncle a particularly new harvest of tomatoes he's proud of, which, if picked and boxed, are less than a full field's row, a thimble of its lucrative worth, which doesn't matter now that the tomatoes are grown by him, for him, giving voice to these harvests on his Californian land to testify. On the road, the sound of truck and train engines haunting the cemetery are clearer than the sight of the mass grave I'm looking for at the edge of Fresno's Mountain View Cemetery. I can't find the tombstone, just 5 years old, bearing the names of 28 previously anonymous ghosts, simply known as Mexican citizens. What appears to be a metallic, electric generator grate is on the side closest to the fence. I walk toward it, finding it to be instead a massive tombstone, the tangible output of a writer and a priest using all possible funeral and Mexican government records to identify and name those formerly anonymous bodies killed after the plane deporting them, taking them to El Centro via Burbank, crashed to the side of the Coalinga Mountains west of I-5 on January 28, 1948. I take a photo from the top of the grave looking east. The original plaque is included at the base of the mass grave and new memorial slab. 28 Mexican citizens who died in an airplane accident near Coalinga, California on January 28, 1948. R.I.P. Signs advertise 100 new grave sites available for purchase. A suburban sprawl in the middle of the Central Valley in towns facing south of Fresno like Lemoore and Hanford, with developers pitching high-speed rail to the moon in hopes of a new cell. And I imagine living here, maybe somewhere near the Thai Buddhist temple I saw on the drive here, visiting Abuelo's grave, one he didn't pay for every weekend. What if my grandfather had been deported by air instead of by train or bus in 1946? Would his fate have been unnamed and as unremarkable as those 28 in Coalinga, or as politicized as the 32 in Chular who died in a car crash? Maybe this explains the only wish he expressed to my mom, to die in his own home, knowing full well the dimensions of those graves at the farthest edge of the cemetery's grounds. I drive more south, aware of the sense of borrowed time more than ever before, and ask myself, who has the power to navigate California? I immediately answer, nobody. We all pay a cost at whatever we decide to move anywhere in the state. It's the privilege of my free, jobless time to explore the official and lived histories of those before us in the state pillaged, conquered, and divided by the Civil War. If I continue to follow the clues of Abuelo's path to California, all the way to Oklahoma and Nebraska, to as many fields between here and there that still remain, will I meet others like me, living between our known reality and the gray areas with displaced narratives preceding us, spread across memory, oral history, burnt photos without smiles? Will we discuss our mothers' favorite bands and how their mothers, like mine, spent their paychecks on vinyl and headphones so their parents couldn't hear the mind-bending sounds of '68? How bad our Spanish is and how we still talk to our elders in the morning knowing they're awake, watching. I repeat Abuelo's phone number to myself as much as his address, his final destination, or at least where I last saw him breathing, repeating the numbers and letters to myself, a history built on land he acquired. I was standing in a California state landmark when he passed, Mills Hall at Mills College in East Oakland, my father on the phone describing the scene, knowing the extremely known fate. Thankful for the end of his body's suffering while immediately longing for a voice, the way his jaw trembled when he laughed, the leather of his skin, the kindness of his eyes, wondering when I'd digitize that tape. In the dead of night, I want to place a plaque at his former home, noting, here stands a home formerly owned by a Mexican national. Near the bed of roses my abuela maintained by the front window, but instead I repeat his wish to die in my home to myself, Just as I remember the sound of his laugh, his posture, his feeding of the backyard blue jays, and his maintenance of the crops, and the way he nicknamed me Chaparro for being the tallest in our family. The scenes are a marathon playing in my mind like a personal memorial built of rotten beets, broken septic tanks, a border agent's slurs, and the mire of sleeping in dirt at night. This memorial standing in my mind and illuminated by every drive between the parts of California I call home. A memorial like a community-made tombstone as drivers accelerate past its perpendicular stakes, its glossy top, toward their future, one that for this temporarily stuck California ends in flames. All right. This is also from Interstate. This is called 14th and Jackson, and it's dedicated to Jade for sure. And yes. When I talk to people in the city about whether they come to Oakland, be it 2007 or 2019, the answer is a resounding never, followed by redundant stories of car break-ins and not wanting to take BART at night. No matter how many East Bay, Marin, and Contra Costa County or Central Valley residents head through the Trans-Bay Tunnel or across the Golden Gate or Bay Bridge every day to San Francisco, going to Oakland is a seemingly annual trip for city dwellers who usually make the pilgrimage for city-sponsored art crawls or like-minded Fox Theater concerts or, at one time, Warriors games. Despite the similar amount of crime in either city, it's Oakland where everyone assumes they'll be shot on sight and that the ghost of Huey Newton and the Black Panthers will greet them at 12th Street BART upon arrival with a shotgun and a toll for whites only. Downtown Oakland is changing in many ways, but my habits on 14th and Jackson are one of them. A smoke by Lake Merritt and some quarter snacks from the bodega next to the Ruby Room by my old building. Peralta Apartments on 13th and Jackson. Eating and smoking under the ground floor tree, 3 floors below the apartment that housed me, my books, my desk, my box spring and mattress, twice the box spring size beginning in June 2007, a year after I graduated from college. Downtown was fear when I first moved here. It was the small businesses of 17th Street, previously tree-lined streets between Franklin and Webster in Chinatown that held up downtown for years, most of the money leaving around 2 p.m. when the business class went home early. Vacant lots and dilapidated car repair shops dotted Telegraph across from the Oakland Black Box where I first performed poetry in the town as a teenager. From my window, I looked west towards Broadway. At night, the sound of egrets mating and fighting fills the blocks up and down Oak near the 11th Street Tunnel and the Oakland Museum all the way up to 14th Street. It's from this third-floor window that I spotted an old couch and abandoned brown leather 3-seater butte that my roommate and I dragged a few blocks, then up a couple flights of stairs back to apartment 310. The bodega heads knew us so well, we got free bottles on our birthdays on the way out of the bar next door. We knew the bartenders and when they worked. Odd now, weighing that era of barely making the $400 rent against being the bottom-rung gentrifiers of our time, if only for having college degrees, but we awoke to the reality of the recession. No jobs, no future every day for what would be years. This intersection was flooded with rage in the wake of Oscar Grant III's murder by BART police on New Year's Day 2009. Then Mayor Ron Dellums nonviolently parted a red sea of protesters here on 14th and Jackson before addressing a crowd rightfully demanding justice for the unarmed, handcuffed, and executed man shot and killed on the southbound Fruitvale Station platform in East Oakland. As the protest turned into minor riots, the owner of the Ruby Room bar, synonymous with the motorcycle club East Bay Rats, stood outside his bar, shotgun in hand, ready for the type of looting that generally occurred a few blocks west. The night of the marches, I demonstrated with coworkers/activists, friends who taught youth by day and risked arrest that night. I turned around and saw some friends being arrested and others fleeing east towards the lake, rendezvousing near the then-standing Merchants parking lot towards Webster. I fled to Berkeley just before the calls poured into my thick flip phone about a police car aflame on my corner, assuredly the same cop I'd seen in my rearview mirror. If the Bay Area is a microcosm, 6 figures in stock options will become the base level for surviving in America. I channeled this worry into a script for a short film called Payday, about a day in the life of an aspiring Oakland artist trying to get a major grant check during the day and go on a date at night. Half the reason I wrote this was to get an establishing shot from behind the characters showing the whole scene in Chinatown Park, the dragon swing set, the basketball courts and constant pickup games, downtown Oakland's skyline, the playground with the Tribune Tower perfectly placed in the background. Before the script was even done, I got the shot without actors in place. 2 Chinatown locals instead sitting on the red metal and curved back benches in the corner facing the Dragon Playground. I heard the Merchants parking lot was being destroyed for a new development that will become the tallest Oakland has seen. I didn't know that it being even closer to city block-sized development that jeopardized the shot of the Tribune Tower, even when I was recording background audio near the sign explaining the history of the entire scene. The sound of basketballs, kids playfully screaming in multiple languages, the AC transit stop on the corner and its multiple necessary lines to East Oakland, the sounds of the town playing in the new shadows of skyscraper investments. How can I tell you how much an intersection means to me without sounding pedantic, soapbox-driven, as if having an opinion is the equivalent of publicly bearing a contagious disease, a cog in the path to your next call? It's the final weeks of 2019. The last Raiders home game ever starts in about an hour. The franchise having decided to leave Oakland again, this time for massive new Las Vegas arenas. The Coliseum's packed with silver and black every year. Imagine a masquerade ball from hell sponsored by Bud Light and soundtracked by Too Short. But also imagine a tailgate bigger than most city swap meets where friends from across state and family lines set up shop, shoot the dozens, and truly find community in the middle of a parking lot where season ticket passes are handed down to the next of kin. What will the internally displaced Raider Nation do now every Sunday morning before 1 p.m. kickoff? Is the Oakland Coliseum the next space to disappear? What do I fear forgetting? Fear losing? The ability to walk around the lake and point to former rooftops and say I used to start every day there? Is Lake Merritt the last thing I want to see ever? As if having this chance is something life in Oakland permits. I lived in the East Bay for over half my life, stubbornly believing Oakland was the only city that made me want to be myself. It wasn't until 2019 that I questioned that belief. And why a place and not a person, a scent, a touch, a song, knowing full well the lake too is man-made. I wonder if I'm mistaking these walls in Lake Merritt and Chinatown's alleys and the subway elevating toward Fruitvale for the smiles, sweat, laughter, drink orders, and inside jokes and apartment buzzer numbers of old friends now breathing and living on other sides of still spinning axis. For the hope that the faces that are still here will not just remain but flourish. This persistent fear, acceptance, and forecast of change guides my finger to the shutter button and pen, documenting all the same. It is December 2019 in the city of Oakland. My habits are not changing, and I no longer live in the downtown Oakland of 2007 or in the downtown deemed Uptown or Oakland Central. Why yell at people on the train when I can instead show them a high-res still image of that unobstructed angle of the Tribune Tower and in all caps Sharpie caption screen? Does anyone else miss those red letters in Oakland's skyline too? Thank you. 2 more. This is from Chip to Now. This is a book all about skateboarding. And surprisingly, this is about injuring yourself during the act of skateboarding. This is called Sick Boy. It felt necessary to go outside and skate after Thrasher Magazine's Jake Phelps' death was announced in March 2019. Not that he would have given a damn what I'd done, the now departed enfant terrible of skateboarding, whose knowledge of the culture's history was only outmatched by his ability to piss people off. I decided that morning to skate an older cruiser board across town, something that by name and definition should have been a mellow ride. It had been months since my last proper session. It's hard as a skater to find one's place within its culture at any point in time, let alone times when work, commutes, and other creative outlets occupy more of the front of mind. Days and weeks turned into months of not skateboarding, doubt crept in, then fear, then malaise. Still, I left the house and went skating, already a win. Off I went down Broadway toward the bike lanes connecting Rockridge with neighboring Temescal from 51st to 40th Street, skating the cross-neighborhood distance of 2 BART stops. It was a trip feeling the sensory overload again, of responding to every crack, car, stop, sign, smell, and sound around me. A month into unemployment, a beer felt in order. The corner bar was open and ready for my stupidity. George Case has been around since just after Prohibition. and is probably the cleanest of the older bars in Oakland. The neon lights read GOKs outside, but the original owner was indeed George. Not the kind of place to know or care what a Yelp was. Local ball game in the tube TV aloft in a corner kind of bar, where the finest technology is a CD jukebox and maybe a digital antenna forced upon them during the broadband switch a couple decades ago. I sat on the short side of the L-shaped bar facing the Giants spring training game, started a tab, one beer turned to 3 red stripes. I thought about Phelps, how I missed the stories he shared with the public, and how the magazine would be assuredly fine. Within the high-speed productions portfolio, Thrasher is its vanguard, and the vanguard for print and digital skateboard media worldwide. I recalled to myself the tales of Phelps, getting hit by an SF minibus and surviving, his well-informed foul mouth, his banning of pro skaters from Thrasher, his almost dying in a van full of skaters in South Africa after the van's brakes gave out, the time actual gunshots entered a van full of skaters in the mid-90s, striking Real Skateboard's pro rider Coco Santiago, injuring him permanently. And then I realized I didn't have a wallet, that I put my license and credit card between my phone and its protective case, not planning to be here, an infamously cash-only bar. The ATM across the street surprisingly wouldn't accept my credit card, and I was stuck. The bartender was an older gentleman with combed-back hair and demeanor that said veteran of foreign service. I feared he thought I was going to offer my board as collateral, as probably other skaters and punks before me had tried before, but who am I kidding? He could tell I was good for it. I called my girlfriend and asked her to drive down with some cash and spot her jobless, wallless guy some bread amid my tight squeeze or whatever imagined and smooth Great Gatsby cutting room floor line I delivered and didn't use on my girlfriend nor the bartender. I tipped well and left. Not only was I rusty on a board, but on a bar stool as well, apparently. She asked if I needed a ride back to our apartment, knowing something I didn't, and I said no, skating off to the nearby high school and skate spot, Oak Tech. Oakland Technical High School's exterior is all regal columns and half-circle stair stages, a giant palace of an exterior before a traditional high school hides inside, including its football field. It's a spot with historic street skating significance after being featured in 1988's Sick Boys. Produced and filmed by Matt Dogg, the VHS was limited to only 1,000 copies worldwide, but became an underground classic showcasing the future legends of San Francisco's street skateboarding scene. Mickey Reyes, Jim Tebow, Tommy Guerrero, and Oakland's Ron Allen. At the spot, all I could think is go fast, push into the smallest side of the bank, and try to get enough speed to hit the larger part of the concrete bank where Reyes skated years prior. I run and jump on my board, still getting used to the feel of this beat-up cruiser. Overcompensating my speed, pushing slightly uphill, I approach the bank and suddenly change my mind. I can't decide whether to ollie into the bank or kick out and bail, but I was going too fast to do anything logical, so I tried both. Impossible, leading to a chaotic tumble onto chewed-up asphalt. My wheels, already a softer urethane, were more worn than I had thought. My board flew one way and my body another. Landing, I planted my left leg down like a mast, raising a white sail of defeat, and I heard a click, more so than a pop coming from my left knee. All this before my body hit the ground and rolled a couple of times into some knee and arm scrapes before my body came to a stop, shook. I remember accidentally staring at the sun and exacerbating my absolute confusion as to what just happened. Most of my life has been spent mumbling across dinner tables and other unamplified interactions, but I yelled that day, a new voice unheard to my ears and lungs before. I'm an idiot, a fool, a dummy, arrogant for not respecting the discipline required to skate anything. What did Phelps say? Something about skateboarding owing you nothing but wheel bite in the rain? I get up quick, flexing and bending my knee to confirm it's not broken. Every terrible thought is running through my mind. It's my left knee, the already bad knee. You okay? I looked over toward a two-seater pickup truck and saw a dude looking at me, appropriately like I was an idiot. I don't know, I replied, honestly. We did the diagnostic talk about whether or not I heard a pop, if I could bend it, if I needed a ride somewhere. I took him up on that offer, using my board as a cane to walk in his direction. He introduced himself, explained he was there because he ran the school's theater department, the truck hauling the latest production strike of set props and odd ends. I told him about participating in such choral theatrical activities most of my life, an hour a day from 5th grade through high school graduation, how it even got me out of the state sometimes, and I wondered if he could smell the beers on my breath or the tree rings and my gray hair as insecurities all the same. Appreciate this solid and figure it out, I thought. The pain made me delirious enough to pour out my familiarity with Rodgers and Hammerstein's entire opera as he made a left from the school up Broadway, my knee spasming its way to the top of my mind. I texted my girlfriend again and told her to meet me again, this time at the 76 station on the way to the bar, the one on Broadway by the California College of the Arts. Not that ice was needed and the gas station had it. Not that I knew shit about the situation. I was holding everything together in this stack of cards I was folding on top of myself. My ability to skate, drink, see skate spots, enjoy theatrical interactions with dudes, literally producing theater, my potential marriage, and hoping things got better. Hobbled to the store for ice, sweating, paid, and quickly sat on the curb between gas pumps in the store. I propped my foot on the board, sitting sideways on its axles and elevated just enough with ice bags around the interior of my left knee. I asked my friend, the doctor, to come over and check out the knee, and they didn't notice any structural damage. Bone bruise was the diagnosis. I sat in my kitchen nook for weeks until a month arrived, staring out the kitchen window from Rockers toward the city and the Bay Bridge. I spent weeks apologizing to my girlfriend, myself, my age, my doctor friend. I looked back at photos from those weeks and see nothing but a big, giant blue ice pack and my cat sharing space on my leg. Lots of photos taken from a chair inside. It was all a reminder of how skateboarding is a discipline, a practice, a ritual. Though some can step off a board and jump back without interruption, creating magic upon arrival, for most, it's scratching off rust, humbling what our minds see versus what our bodies tell us to feel when we step outside on our boards, let alone stepping outside our comfort zones. Stepping outside our comfort zones. Stepping outside our comfort zones. It's the reason I gasped at a new scooter owners going 20 miles per hour down the congested streets at the squeeze of a handlebar without knowing what a fall and failure feels like. They might as well drive those things blindfolded, and me skating the Oak Tech banks with a stiff, buzzed body felt similarly foolish. I jogged for the first time a month later, the trails at Mount Davidson in South San Francisco, cresting the massive cross acquired by a local group to commemorate victims of the Armenian genocide. I managed to walk around enough to meet my parents in town for a trip at an art exhibit. I even got enough mobility to have dinner with my girlfriend in downtown Oakland before going on a walk and proposing to her on the east side of Lake Merritt. I can still feel how much that knee hurt as we turned and took selfies, smiles from ear to ear. And I wonder still if that dude's play went well at Oak Tech, and if the kids indeed received a proper standing ovation. All right, last one. Surprise was exposed. Thanks again for hearing me out and for listening to myself and Jade tonight. We have books for sale, we have zines for sale. You can Venmo either of us accordingly over there. Big thanks to Demo again for hosting us. There's also a flyer for some upcoming readings for a new fiction book called Sacramento Noir. It's a collection of Sacramento-based noir short fiction. I'm honored to have a story in there. Two of the writers are also here in attendance. You want to wave? There's several readings coming up, and they will be at many of them reading and attending. So the flyers over there, please take a photo, and they start up in about 2 weeks. Okay, this is all about this gentleman right here, Mr. Sun Ra, and this is a very jazzy space. I know that jazz happens in this space on a frequent and regular basis, so yeah, this is called King Shit, or Can a King Be a King? Sun Ra is my favorite skateboarder of all time, and I've never seen him skate, nor do I have any evidence that one of the most under-recognized and greatest jazz musicians, performers, and composers of all time was indeed a skateboarder. But his heel flips, I imagine, are flicked, lofted, caught, and landed with such immeasurable style that he can only be number one in my heart. Imagine being a teenager, opening up the first skate magazine you've ever purchased, probably in a grocery store checkout line instead of a proper skate shop, and beholding the image unveiled like a secret. A 60-ish years old piano destroyer and composer meets conductor wearing a galactic dashiki while executing an impossible heel flip over a car from flat. How would you react to the feeble attempts at describing this extraterrestrial activity documented in 35mm, published in a Thrasher spread, and presented to you, consumer and new worshiper of this wooden toy? Sun Ra, the persona, frequently precedes Sun Ra, the musician, band leader, and cultural dark horse, and it's one reason why the myth of Sun Ra makes him, in my eyes, a skater, an extremely disciplined young man, obsessive about the technical prowess of his craft, who was mentored by elders growing up in Birmingham, Alabama. A bookworm, a library lurker, and a devoted walker, young Ra dedicated himself to mastering the craft and, later as an adult, sharpening the skill set of his commune cohabitating ensemble, the orchestra, which was filled with neophytes and legends alike. But how would we react then to Ra leading by example and skating a demo with obstacles so terrible he's forced to levitate on demand over an apparently donated car? Is this beholden image instead a visual vibration, like the approximate measurement of a shadow, an assumed and changing form all the same? At the height of the pandemic, I'd sit on the wood platform dividing my and my neighbor's side doors and stare at the sky above. This landing is my front yard, backyard, break room, conference center, wellness retreat destination, and on wildfire nights, charcoal sauna. I listen to Raw in my headphones, the now digitally streaming intergalactic tunes, and think about that morning skate session and what I wanted to try and learn tomorrow. And then I'd wonder if I was sick, and as I breathe in the air, reminding myself that I was indeed outside. And I imagine the orchestra playing these tunes, Ra orchestrating by pointing at different members of the ensemble. I'd carry these sunset dreams into the next skate session, imagining the orchestra awaiting me at the curbs, already sweating an hour into this hypothetical time-bending skate session. So what spaces would Ra's heel flips inhabit? Would these heel flips traverse? Maybe Ra would make a manhole cover rise slowly from the ground with his telekinetic powers, if only to heel flip that much higher over it. New challenges for this mortal's playground. Such interstellar skate demonstrations by Ra would precede a brief poetry sermon regarding physics, discipline, space, time, universes, pharaohs, before he devoted the rest of the evening to music, thus ending the skate demo/experience somewhere in the afterlife of an immeasurable day. And I have to say somewhere and not sometime, because it is the place that creates space, and space is the place, as Ra has proclaimed many times before. A dance, then, with Ra skating a choreography, speaking from a future faraway land, the place from which Ra was abducted in a dream, a place resembling Saturn according to Ra, before returning to what his family refers to as Alabama. Ra decided still to continue his intergalactic journey through the Keys, yes, but maybe. He also started waxy curves, slapping the shit out of Birmingham sidewalks en route to rehearsal, landing perfect heel flips between gigs, like a double palm screen on ivory keys. If kick flips are nimble acts, heel flips are explosions. There is something about heel flips that for me resembles a raised fist, a declaration by those who know the need to squat and get that lift, a bold, generous pop that sinks with a propelled flick. Something about how the front foot of a heel flip curls its toes around the inside of the board like coiled knuckles, preparing for what kicking motion of that front foot. A flick that becomes a shotgun blast, welcoming a heel flip like a gorgeous wail from the speakers of our subconscious. I imagine Sun Ra would cast heel flips into interdimensional spaces of liberation, admired, respected across time and space. The memory of Sun Ra performing tricks would illuminate across the sky like the gold sequins hand-sewn along Ra's and the orchestra's caps and gowns so bright any barfly and jive turkey alike would be able to see, admire, respect Ra from across the beyond. He would excel at unique DIY skate parks, ones with enough space to house multiple random objects while serving Ra's need for disciplined, repetitive training. Maybe San Francisco's Flower Shop, West Oakland's Lower Bobs, or the most infamous Burnside in Portland. Upon arrival, the rest of the locals would quicken their pace, trying to land their tricks before Ra's spontaneous acts reimagine the spot. Beforehand, they'd cooperatively lead exercises with the orchestra, wide lunges, big leg stretches, and Tai Chi alignments before warming up with obscenely difficult first tricks, frontside invert on the tallest quarter pipe, or maybe a heel flip into a grind down the hubble ledge, setting the session's tone. Full cotton quasi onesies, a turban or three, and a galaxy of shawls tucked and flying around his already flowing body. No shoes or sandals, just suede huaraches held together with shoe goo. I can hear Ra on a proper payphone asking the team manager to send them more boards at the next stop of the tour. Boards of specific widths and experimental lengths, and with layers of different colored veneers to stimulate his energy between tricks. An attempt to capture Ra bearing the weight and possibility of experiencing this thing called skateboarding, a pure, self-propelled joy. Thank you. yeah, again, we have books for sale, zines for sale, water, coffee, stay up all night, do your thing. Yeah, thank you so much for being here.